I I want to talk about 1 Samuel 14 today. And what impressed me about this is the power that we have to bless, to tie, to bind, to release over ourselves and over our children with our lips, with our words. And I'm going to share something kind of tragic that we can all learn from, either for ourselves, for our marriages, but especially for our children, and to watch what we speak over them. So in 1 Samuel 14, I will summarize the story. And basically, what was happening is this is around the time of Saul when he was king. And they were at a point where they were kind of waiting for the enemy. And his son Jonathan and his armor bearer decided to sneak out of the camp and go in to check on the enemy. And they were asking whether the Lord would give them the enemy on their hands and deliver them. And then if they did, they would start a fight, and then Samuel and everyone else would join. So he sneaked out of the camp. Jonathan, Saul's son, sneaked out of the camp without telling his dad, without telling anyone. And he went. And when they went to the enemy camp, they realized that the Lord did release the enemy into their hands. So as they enter the battle, then the camp realized, wow, there's a battle happening. Let's go, let's win, let's fight. And they won. They won the battle. The Lord released them into their hands. But here's the sad part. On verse 24, we'll do 24. It says, now the Israelites were in distress that day because Saul had bound the people under an oath, saying, cursed be anyone who eats food before evening comes, before I have avenged myself on my enemies. So none of the troops tasted food. Saul. So he bound the people by the words of his mouth. He cursed anyone who would eat food before he avenged himself on his enemies. Now here's what happened. We're just going to jump around, okay? But you can read it and it's amazing. It says, verse 17 says, but Jonathan had not heard his father had bound the people with the oath. So he reached out the end of the staff that was in his hand and dipped it into the honeycomb. He raised his hand to his mouth and his eyes brightened. Then one of the soldiers told him, your father bound the army under a strict oath, saying, cursed be anyone who eats food today. That's why the men are faint. And Jonathan said, my father has made trouble for the country. See how my eyes have brightened when I tasted a little of this honey. How much better it would have been if the men had eaten today some of the plunder they took from their enemies. Would not the slaughter of the Philistines have been even greater? That day, after the Israelites had struck down the Philistines, they were exhausted because they weren't supposed to eat, remember? So what happened is that Saul used his words and released a curse over anyone who would eat. And because his words, especially as king, as authority over the country, carry weight, great weight, that curse remained, right? So he didn't know that his own son was going to fall under that curse. So his own father, can you imagine? His own father released a blanket curse that landed on his own son. So what was that going to do to his kingdom? It was going to destroy it, because now his son ate honey. As soon as he ate honey, his eyes brightened, his strength came to him, And he's saying, oh, I wish my dad hadn't done this, because if he wouldn't have released that curse, because that's what it was, then we would all have eaten, being stronger and in strength, gone to defeat the enemy, right? So then what happens after that is just kind of sad. The Lord, the curse remains basically on Jonathan. And at some point, even Saul says, if one of us has sinned, even if it's my own son Jonathan, we will kill him. Can you imagine a father saying over that? Because he had released that curse already. But the people said, no, 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 don't do such an evil thing. Please don't kill him. So they end up not killing him. But I think the curse remains, because if you fast forward to the times of David, Jonathan actually ends up dying, and he doesn't inherit the throne. He dies, his father dies, and it's just really kind of tragic. So this made me think for us, in as we're releasing words out of Proverbs 18:21, the word says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." So from our tongue we can release life, or we can release death. And whatever we release, we're going to eat the fruit of it. So in this case, Saul chose to release death over the camp, over whoever, and who ended up receiving that curse? Himself, in his own seed, in his own family. And remember, Jesus also always warned us to watch what we said, because by the words that we say, we will be condemned or we will be justified, right? And by the measure that we judge others, we ourselves will be judged, right? And I don't know if you've seen this, but I've seen it, and it's an unfortunate thing, but I think this proves my point here, and God's point, really. I've seen a lot of women, especially in the Hispanic community. I'm Hispanic, and I've noticed time and time again, when a mom or somebody starts criticizing somebody else's daughter or somebody else's family, oh, this family or this daughter is X, Y, and Z, da 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 da. And then sure enough, you look at one of her own daughters, and they turn out just like what they were criticizing in the other person. And whatever that was, whether it was, I mean, I won't mention some things here, but if you listen to those words, those judgments that they released over somebody else and somebody else's children, surely they come right back to her. So this is kind of sobering. I think it's reminding us that by the measure that we measure, whatever seeds we plant, God cannot be mocked. Whatever a man sows is what he will reap, right? And what do we sow? We sow words, we sow blessings, we sow curses, we sow life, we sow death. So this is very sobering for us to realize that whatever we're releasing with our lips, with our mouth, whatever words we're sowing into our family, into our children, even the judgments that we're releasing over other people, those are seeds. And if they're not destroyed and repented of, and just really asking God for mercy, God can't be mocked. It's a seed that was sown, and it will reap. Unfortunately, Saul's seed of cursing, that curse remained, and it brought his downfall, Jonathan's downfall, unfortunately, and in other people, right, under his reign. So I want to encourage you today. You have the power to release blessings or to release curses over your own children. God's not going to be mocked if you're blessing your children, but then you're going and mocking the neighbor. You're going and cursing the neighbor's children. You're going and cursing other families. You can bless your children all you want, but if you're also sowing evil seeds out there, one way or another, if they're not repented of and canceled, they're going to bear a very bad fruit. So I'm going to record a prayer, and I'll most likely release the prayer down in the description. So if this has touched you in some way and you're thinking, I need to watch my words, I need to be careful, or I can already think of all these times that I've cursed people, I need to repent and ask God to collapse and destroy those seeds so that they're not following me with bad harvests. I'm gonna set a prayer, and I invite you to just go on the link. It's probably going to be a Spotify or some other prayer, or I'll link up a video for the prayer. I encourage you, just go to God and repent and recommit your lips and your thinking and your speaking to Him, so that the seeds that you're sowing over yourself, over your marriage, and over your children are seeds of good that will bring great harvests. Okay? Blessings.